Welcome to another episode of the Improv podcast. My guest today, Stephen Morgan, is a stand-up comic, improviser, and musician. So you're from the UK, but you live in the Netherlands.
That's right. I escaped before 2016, but I did escape, and now I live in the Netherlands, which I quite like, to be honest. It's a good place to live.
Whereabouts do you live?
I live in a city called Utrecht, which is right in the middle. Amsterdam is the city most people know. It's about 20 minutes away from there. Let's say that on the train.
And so tell me a bit about your comedy that you do.
So I do stand-up improv, a little bit sort of high energy, absurd. I don't even punch up. I just kind of punch myself. It's a lot of self-defacing comedy and that sort of thing. Because I do a lot of improv as well, it kind of fits into that. I do big character work.
What's your relationship with improvisation like musically?
That's probably where I started because before I got more involved in the performance arts, my background was very solidly in music and I was in lots of different bands. My tendency, because of just multiple reasons, ADHD mostly, is that I kind of really enjoy that experience of feeding off others, jamming, improvising on an idea, starting with something or creating artificial limitations to try and really expand on something in terms of songwriting. Everything I do always feels very collaborative. On my own, I'll just go to sleep.
So what bands were you in?
The one I was probably most recognizable was Neon Highwire, but of course it's all very sort of localized. We used to play a lot of clubs in London back in the 2000, that whole kind of new rave era. We were making music before it was even a term that existed. And I guess now it gets the title of indie sleaze a lot, which I don't really understand. Because it was a hybrid of a bit of indie dance and a lot of different elements like that. It went down well in the club environment, basically, which was great in terms of opportunities. But as someone who would like to go to bed at 11 o'clock generally, I didn't enjoy the fact that we would often be going to the stage at 1 a.m. And I would be like, oh, what, really? Okay, fine. So those days are behind me.
Running some other way, got to get out, but it's already too late to pull yourself out of this now. Dedicating endless blacks to friends, you're not proud of something that's changed.
That was a clip of the track Akira by Neon Highwire. So I'm going to play you a piece of improvised music, and I'd like you to tell me what it makes you think of. So that's anything that comes into your mind, any kind of thoughts, ideas, or emotions. What did that make you think of?
That made me feel dizzy. It had the sustain, the alternate sort of the scales that you were doing. It just felt like when someone's kind of slowly falling, the room is kind of spinning around them. They're trying to hold on to something, but then at the end, they just fall into a sleepy pile.
Interesting. You got this quite long chord at the beginning and a kind of sense of suspense, and then playing around with this particular scale, can't remember what it's called, but you've got the bass note, the note C. And then over the top, you've got D major. So you got this weird modal thing going on. You said that made you feel kind of dizzy. So there's something about the fact that it's not in C major.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think the fact that you've got the C, which kind of is a stable point throughout it all, and then the slightly shifted, as you say, D major scale that's going up there, feeling like it's pulling in a different direction, but then these two things are kind of in contrast of each other, and the result that just makes me feel as if I'm trying to hold on to the C.
That's a whole kind of important part of music, is this tension and release. that's when you get that kind of sense of satisfaction, is when it returns home. So there's this constant sort of journey that's happening. And the music can be really annoying if that doesn't happen.
I get what you mean. I know this is like a really like arbitrary and like silly example to give, but I remember that song, Baby Shark. I remember seeing something that was like a deconstruction of why that song became such a sort of viral earworm. And part of the reason for it was that they were describing was the fact that the very last note does not give you that closure. The very last note of that looped like part of the entire thing always is slightly leaving you wanting to have that resolution. And the only way you get the resolution is to loop it again. So you're always in this endless chase for the next note, but then you got the next bar and like an intentionally addictive quality.
On a previous episode, I was talking about notification sounds. The melody that's played in my car when you leave your lights on is unresolved. It's a bit like this. If all those melodies were resolved, I think people would check their phone less, check their emails less, leave their lights on.
That's amazing. I never thought of that.
I'd like you to tell me a story of some kind. And what I'll do is break the story down into sections and improvise a soundtrack to the story.
So when I was living in Brisbane in Australia, which is somewhere I moved from the UK, it was quite a shock to the system. I had moved away from all the people I knew and loved and was not only very far away from them, but I was also in a different time zone. And when I got there, it was quite invigorating, basically being able to reinvent yourself, and also terrifying because of the fact that you just had no guardrails between you and what else opportunities or things were possible. But I got a job shortly after being there. Every day that I would cycle to this office, I would go past this bus stop, which was outside an old people's home. Every day outside this old people's home by the bus stop was this one old man who would be standing there just kind of waving to the traffic. So each day I'd be like with my headphones on, listening to whatever music it was that was getting me through and waking me up to start the day. And I would see him waving and I would started waving back. And it was just like this really exhilarating experience in the sense that I was so far from home, but just seeing this person reaching out like to the community, to people, complete strangers, just somehow made me feel so much more settled and made me feel so much more like maybe this is a place I can be and actually feel part of the community. And then it must have been going on possibly about 9 months to a year, like a long time. And one day I made the mortal mistake of forgetting my headphones. And as I was cycling past, I could hear what the man was saying, and essentially he was shouting expletives at anyone and everyone as they went past. So he's just standing there, smiling, waving at the traffic, but shouting the most kind of foul, like awful things to people as he does this. And I was just completely gobsmacked. But of course, this has all happened so fast. By the time I've taken this in, I've already cycled past. But I just realized that my perception, my understanding of this whole situation I'd been in every day was completely wrong. It was just completely different. I had made all these assumptions, and actually whatever was going on with him was not this wholesome connection experience. It was just the fact that he was shouting at the world. And even though this was true, and it meant that I essentially had made so many assumptions and created the reality I wanted rather than the reality that was there, it still kind of felt good in the sense that like it really helped sort of make me realize what it was that I needed, or what it was about a place that you live that can really help you and help you settle and feel settled in that place.
How did you feel when you experienced this realization?
Well, it was almost dizzying to kind of like process so many things, because you're dealing with the combination of realizing so many assumptions were wrong. Also feeling slightly offended because, of course, this person who is your inverted commas friend is actually not friendly at all. So there's that little bit of hurt and like anger from the whole experience. But then also just like this embarrassment because of the fact that essentially you've just made something up. There was nothing that was hidden. You just hid it from yourself. So it just feels so silly that you didn't realize that this was happening all along.
So I'm going to go for this sense of optimism musically, as in you're riding along on your bike and everything's good and this guy waving at you and it's like, oh, that's nice, whatever, part of your day. And then the moment of realization where, as you said, this sense of dizziness, waking up to reality, maybe the slight uncomfortableness and the sense of embarrassment. So there's sort of two different sections to the piece. So what did you think of that?
They felt again like this really sort of ominous underpinning to that. It captured the confusion of the misunderstanding of the situation. Maybe not as like optimistic as I expected. I really liked what I heard, but it kind of twisted on what my expectations of how that interpretation of the story would go. It's almost focused more on the embarrassment I felt.
So the initial optimism you felt wasn't quite optimistic enough.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's the sustained and everything. It gives it more of a grander feeling. Perhaps, like a less of a naivety.
Does that feel optimistic to you?
Yeah, that does, yeah.
I was going for this idea of using this same pattern, but then playing a scale that's really quite awkward. It's the same thing, but it's a bit wrong.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, it's kind of like it's the same thing, but now there's an underpinning or a different meaning behind it.
So I'll take that idea and see if I can go for another take.
It perfectly captures it because it's essentially the same structure, but the differences are small but are significant and change how you feel about it completely.
It's interesting the difference in emotion that the sustain pedal makes. To me, anyway, this feels more naive. Than the... It's just interesting that difference of how, without using the sustain pedal, it's a lot jumpier. It's all childish in a way.
It's definitely that sort of childishness to it and like less self-assured, more just taking things in as they are.
So did you think the second take was an improvement?
Yeah. The second take, I could map every part of it with the story you create and map across the entire sort of feeling from start to finish.
So what did you get out of this podcast?
What I got out of this podcast is that I absolutely love improvisation and creating something out of nothing. And especially when it's based on something that's like unexpected or coming from a different place. And I love the style that you play. And to me, it just feels so enriching and lovely to hear you create these songs from nothing at all and reflect on this in a way that I think is just so powerful. Like music just can transcend things in ways that like words and actions just cannot. Whilst I tell these clumsy stories about things that happened, the music really captures like how it felt in a way that my words didn't do justice to. And in that sense, yeah, it's just beautiful.
Thanks so much. It's been very insightful and great to talk to you.
Thanks, Luke. Have a good day.
Join us again for another episode of ImproPod. Thanks for listening.